So today I'll be continuing to take a look at a scenario where civilization starts over. In the last episode we saw the continued exploration and expansion across the world, as we saw a lot of countries over here in North America expand with a few new ones like Arizona in there. And also in South America we saw war over in here in the Lime Chilean nation with these guys that were very aggressive towards the outsiders. They got invaded and were forced to split back this country. And finally we saw over here in Asia a treaty to divide up this land over here into the sub-Siberian parts, which led to some tension between these two Siberian countries, tension that will continue in this episode. Although the first event of this video will be taking place over here in Australia, and this has to do with the fact that in the last episode we saw the establishment of the first Australian country over in here, the first country in Oceania besides the Alasabi Pirates, and with the Alasabi Pirates allowing these guys to become independent and form a country, this will also lead to a lot more countries being formed over in Australia. And with this we see a lot more countries forming in Oceania, as now we see a new country over in here, a pink country in the north of Australia, a lime country, a brown country over here on the western coast, a purple one, here in the south we see a gold one, another lime one, and a red brown country over in here. Now all these form over here in Australia and Oceania. And now we even see capitals being added to all of the countries over in here. But now we'll go away from Australia and we'll go back into Asia, because tensions between the North Siberian nation and the South Siberian nations are getting worse and worse. As in the last episode, Yozum, the Red Nation, has expanded a lot and hasn't left anything for their northern neighbor. So because of this, these two guys will be very mad at each other and they will finally go to war. The first advancements in this war will be made by Carium, as they immediately go over here from their capital area, as they don't want to lose their capital, and immediately send their offensive forces into their neighbor and take advantage of their army that wasn't really ready. The army was more focused on assimilating the territories that they have just taken in the last episode. So this will come in as an advantage for Carium, as they also go over here through these northern territories of them, as they are looking to unite all of Siberia. And one of the steps is to also go over here over this little plateau and take this land. But to do this they need to invade through their neighbor, and through their neighbor will invade, as now they go over in here and fully cut their border over in here and proceed to go more south, as they are starting to form a bulge, which then turns into a spearhead towards their capital. Though Yozum isn't weak, so they will manage to come with a counter-offensive of their own, and they will be pretty successful in this counter-offensive, as they have a geographical advantage, considering that, I mean, they have some pretty livable land, while these guys are pretty much a frozen wasteland. And because of a pretty good general in the army of Yozum, they will even start to make their first pushes into Carium, into their neighbor, with the goal of cutting up north the recently annexed territories by Carium, and to destroy their nation and, well, win this war, as they also go ahead and connect up with Haurius and have pretty big success in doing so. But although they are successful in taking these Siberian lands are not nearly as valuable as what Carium had taken out of them for now. We see more failures by Yozum on this front, as Carium starts to push greatly along their border with the wasteland, with the land not claimed by anyone, and even managed to make over here a little border and connect up with Mantasia, Now Mantasia, similar to Carium, was also pretty mad at Iosium for taking this much land, so Mantasia is in support of Carium and will give them quite a bit of supplies. This supplies is what allows Carium to push even more over in here, now thickening their border with Mantasia and to push over in here, starting to go deeper into their territory, into the territories they wish to claim, and from here they will make an encirclement over in here, which will pretty much just be abandoned there to die. As now here reinforcement happens, which leads to Carium managing to push Iosium back out of their nation and leads to some pretty bad strategical issues for Iosium. With this bad strategical planning, we'll now have Carium start to push onto this border into Iosium's territory, and with this they will be pretty destroyed. And after a couple more pushes and a very scary spearhead that takes place to their capital, immediately we'll have Iosium go ahead and surrender to Carium. And in the peace treaty of Iosium's capital, we see that Iosium gets actually quite embarrassed by Carium, as we see Carium take a pretty healthy amount of land over here into their northern border, and also they take an even more wealthy amount of land over in here into the west of their nation. And finally, for the last part of the peace treaty, Carium also claims this unclaimed plateau of land that was claimed by no one. So with this, Carium pretty much achieves its goal of becoming a Siberian empire, but their goal is not over yet, as there's still quite a bit of territory in here. But for now, part 1 of their plan has been finished. And I guess now with their newly found friend, Mantasia will also see a bit of burst in population and economy. Thus they will finally make the decision to expand up north and connect up with the sea. They are finally no longer a landlocked nation. Now they are not much better, they have pretty much frozen sea access, but they at least have sea access and a pretty good country in here that they are allied with, so now they are also doing better. But now we'll have to discuss a pretty exciting event across the world. First of all, over here in North America, the final explorations will take place with all the countries coming together, and finally the last pieces of North America will get explored. Down into South America, we see much of the same, with pretty much the entire continent now coming together and exploring over into the Amazon, now discovering this Cyan nation, and together with them they go up here in the north and explore the rest of the Amazon rainforest. Thus now also South America is fully explored. Into Oceania, the Alasabi pirates, together with all the new independent countries over in here, will now go. They will discover Tasmania, they will discover New Zealand, and they will discover the rest of the Pacific Islands. And the final explorations will take place in 1750, as we see Antarctica being also fully discovered like all the other continents, and this marks the final explorations, as now the Earth gets fully 100% discovered and mapped out. Now the entire Earth is fully discovered and fully mapped out. All of the gray spaces are now gone and the entire Earth has been discovered again in 1750, which is around 110 years earlier than in our timeline. But remember, in this timeline, civilization is way more advanced, so although it's 110 years earlier, they do have technology somewhat comparable to what they have in the real timeline around that time. And immediately as we see the Earth get fully mapped out, we'll see some countries immediately go and expand a bit into these newly explored areas. First we see Blue China, and yes, by the way, I haven't updated the country names layer yet, but these guys will expand heavily over here in their region as they are starting to really become a strong country around their area, and they are becoming pretty strong now, directly competing with the Korean Empire. Now if you remember, these two are pretty much the big countries of the Chinese area. They were both discovered around the same time a couple episodes ago, and these guys have been competing for influence and for power pretty much for forever at this point, and now even more as they start to feel the imperialism of the outside world. If you looked at China's borders, this would have been pretty predictable, but we'll also see the brown Chinese country go ahead over in here and expand, now bordering the blue Chinese, which now leads to a huge trade route network being built over in here into China. Now going over to Japan, we'll see the split of the Japanese Isles, with Hokkaido going over and taking the more northern Japanese parts, and now even move through the Sakhalin Islands, not the Sakhalin, the Kurili Islands, and have expanded quite a bit and become pretty dang strong. And a similar story will be able to be said about their southern neighbor, as they now also go ahead and expand throughout the southern islands, and with this they also conquer these islands around the area, and also at their time they will end up becoming a pretty big and pretty powerful regional power over in Japan. Even crossing onto the other side, we go over to Gold, Alaska, and this guy is similar enough to all the other countries, will go ahead and expand their nation greatly, as now they move away from tribalism and become more civilized and start to follow a similar path to the colonizers and to countries like the Dakotan Empire. Then going over here to the Vancouver Island and to the three countries over in here, including the Dakotan Empire, currently one of, if not the strongest country in North America. This will all come together and make the Oregon Treaty. This treaty will be a bit interesting because it will go by the rule of the stronger you are, the less land you get, and this is meant to make all these countries in this region of equal power. Now that's far from the truth, as we see the Dakotan Empire taking a bit of land, but still they easily remain the strongest country in this region. Going over to Nevada, we see that they take this land. Over into California, they take a bit in this, and finally the weakest of the bunch, which is the Vancouver country. These guys gain the most land, gaining a huge part of Oregon, and over here into Canada, now becoming a pretty big country. Going to the newly formed gold team in here, these guys will cross the sea and land in Tasmania, taking over this island. Then over to Carium, these guys will reclaim the islands that they have lost a very long time ago, now reclaiming them. And a similar story will be with Sabroja, as they take this island, and then we'll see a new country forming here. Here we'll see the formation of a red country over in here, which will be pretty big and take up the rest of these lands, and also take Novaya Zemlya. And this is, I mean, a pretty basic country. It doesn't really have much going with it, but there's countries like these guys which aren't really happy with them, as they might have maybe wished to take land from them. A similar thing can be said about their ally over here in Mantasia. But after all this peace and expansion and new countries around the world, of course everyone needs to destroy it with a war and destroy everyone's entire good mood, and this is exactly what will happen in Madagascar. Quascaria will decide to invade their southern neighbor in brown Madagascar. Reason? They want to reclaim old land. fair enough, I mean they used to resign in these areas, and then these guys kind of forced them to retreat up north and then form their nation in the south. So that's a bit of a recap of what happened in Madagascar. So because of this, now Quascaria will decide that for some reason this is the perfect time to go ahead and reclaim your land, as they get alarmingly close to the capital only to suffer a pretty bad loss into a spearhead over in here. Spearhead which ends up getting pushed back and they are reconnected up with their border. But Quascaria does still have a lot of success over in here, going on the western coast, as the eastern one is still pretty defended, and in fact their entire push over in here gets taken away. And now we even see these guys go into their territory, but this doesn't happen for too long, as the army immediately freaks out and decides to send a bunch of army in here and totally decimate those troops. And now they kind of give them the memo that, hey, you should move quicker, and using the troops that just recently won over in here, they go over in the east of the nation and connect up with this push and these armies. And now this time they have a successful battle at the capital, in which they manage to capture their capital, and from here we see them agreeing to peace. And in the peace treaty we'll see that Brown Madagascar will have to cede a pretty wealthy amount of land to Quascaria, as now these guys grow bigger and stronger and have reclaimed a pretty big amount of their land. And now they even go over in here and take this archipelago of islands, so stuff for them is going good. But for the final event of this video, we'll have something pretty interesting take place, and this is a meeting. This is a meeting that will take place over in the capital of the Pokian Union, and to this meeting there are a lot of countries across the globe invited, mostly countries around Africa. The goal of this meeting will be to divide up Africa between all the countries in this continent and to make up new countries and fill in the continent and fully claim it and leave no unclaimed areas left. And to this meeting there are multiple countries invited. First of all, the most obvious one, the Pokian Union, will come there itself. Will have their neighbor in Brinia, in Maleki, in Karta. Of course we'll have the strongest country in the world, Teria, get invited. Aldicta will get invited. Kolonira will get invited. Solevia will get invited. The You Guys Make Up a Name gets invited. And finally we'll have Siberia, Jetia, and partially Derlandia being involved in this meeting. Now the reason for Derlandia, they will not actively participate in this project and in this meeting, but they will kind of play a bit of a role in it. They will kind of influence some stuff. They will help out especially their neighbors in here in Siberia and Jetia, which are their allies. They will help them with this meeting, because this meeting, again, it's meant to fully claim Africa and go throughout all these territories that are unclaimed and fill in the continent. This meeting is gonna be known as the Scramble for Africa. And that'll do it for today's video. I hope you liked it and I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye.